let's talk about reforming education. And sure, California needs it given those scores. This is the great neglected issue. Republicans just don't take advantage of it, in my view. You're all over this issue. What should they be talking about out there and everywhere?
I'll give you an example. In 1996, the NAEP scores, the National Academic Education Progress Scores, which is really the gold standard,
right,
how you can measure state to state. Florida Hispanics were in the bottom of the pack. Fast forward 10 years later, Florida Hispanics do better than Californians on the NAEP score in reading and in math, reading in 8th grade and 4th grade. Our Hispanics do better than the average California score, and it's because we measured. We have consequences between mediocrity and improvement. We reward schools for learning gains. There's a consequence when schools are trapped in failing. There's more charter schools. There's more freedom to be able to innovate. We have vouchers, which I think puts pressure on the system to improve. There's a focus on reading in Florida. All of these things were done with a very similar kind of population, and our gains have been significant, and California has languished, even though they spend more.
Yeah.
It's not a question of spending. So I think it's just the freedom to transform the education system to make it a little more child-focused rather than protecting the adults in the system. And if California did that, I think it would be incredibly important for their long-term economic future, and I think it would show that, again, that you can reform some of these things. When I go out to California, I get a sense that people think, well, it's just impossible to change things.
Yeah,
and that's a bad attitude to have, because that's self-fulfilling.
And they leave. What about Sweden, quickly? What did you learn from Sweden that we might apply here? No, we don't always learn positive lessons from Sweden.
Yeah. Interestingly, Sweden has a complete voucher system. So your kids can go to a public school or to a private school with state money. And I didn't sense that there was a whole lot of controversy to that, interestingly. And I visited a school that was the largest private school system, if you will. There are maybe 18 to 20 schools that are owned and operated by this management team. And it's really a school of one, if you will. Each student has to learn 32 modules during a year, and they learn at their own pace. And the teachers are collaborators, if you will. They're coaches, and there's team learning and there's individualized learning. It's all computer-based, but it's not a fancy place with extraordinary costs. And I met kids in middle school that were from Baghdad and Somalia, immigrants to Stockholm, that were trilingual or quadrilingual. They learned Swedish, they learned English, they learned another language. They may have come with their native language.
Let me ask you to pause there, Governor. We've got to go to break. You're just going to stay with us another segment, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, innovator, idea man for the Republican Party and the conservative movement, actually for all of America. This is a guy who doesn't think ideologically. He thinks broadly. He thinks philosophically. And, yeah, sure, Seth. And we're delighted he's going to stay another segment. Can we have real music for the governor of Florida? I mean, oh, there it is. Okay, that's better. Hey, Jeb, thanks for staying with us, Jeb. I just think we should be a little, act a little more grown up around the former governor of Florida. We're talking education. Before that, though, I want to do this in front of 3.25 million people. I know a lot of people in public life. Two things about Jeb Bush. First time he came to see me to get my advice, came by himself with a pen and a pad. No aides, no, recorders, just let's talk. Very impressive. Second, in the midst of one of the toughest issues that this country's been involved in over the years, the Terry Schiavo case, we were carrying on an email correspondence at the highest levels of intelligence from his end, at least, candor, intelligence, and goodwill. This is a man who is what he seems to be, and it's an honor to know you, sir.
Well, Bill, thank you very much. You've always been a role model, and
not always.
Just as an aside,
not 80%.
Okay,
70.
I'm not bringing up the other 20.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, I think people in public life need to have more intellectual curiosity, and I've always admired your ability to be curious, because it's if you think you've got it all figured out in a world like the one we're living in, you're missing a lot of great opportunities to get better and steal people's ideas and not be set in your way. So that's something I've learned over time.
Thanks. Let's get back to education. You have looked at this issue. You were a reform-minded governor. You did a lot of great things. We know what works in education. It is extremely frustrating we can't get it into place. We know about the research that tells us it's not class size, it's the quality of the teacher that makes a difference. All these other things we know, which is that if you choose your schools, you're likely to be better because parents will be more involved. How do we push this machine? How do we get this thing? Power is when men act in bodies, it's power. The teachers' unions are powerful. Others are powerful. What can you teach us from your experience about how to move the ball?
Well, first of all, we know these things, but we've not had the substantive research to validate it, in a way that people can't argue about it. And now we're beginning to get that because of states like Florida, again, where we've collected data and we measure it. And so I think everything you just said can be validated by solid research.
Right.
I would argue that it'll take transformation will take more than one way, but I think the single most important thing that's different today than 10 years ago or 15 years ago is technology. And I think that if the goal is to move to a student-centered system where kids learn at their pace and in their way to rigorous standards, which I think should be the goal for our country and our communities, and everybody should agree to that if possible, then technology is the means by which we achieve it the fastest way and in a disruptive way where we shift away from the system and focus on learning. And it's amazing what's going on now, kind of on the margins of the education system with technology. And it's possible, I think, it's very possible that you can move, because of technology, to a student-centered system where you're focusing on the child and the funding goes with the child, and the lines of who's delivering the education begin to get blurred between public and private and traditional and non-traditional.
Right.
I honestly believe, many other sectors of our economy and of our life have changed because of technology. And I think this may be the means, because we've tried the frontal assault, and it's hard.
Yeah, I had this experience with K-12, successful company, but look at the whole world knows about the University of Phoenix. It's an extraordinary success. People get these degrees, and a lot of it is making use of the technology. It is, for a country that values innovation, that likes people to come up with new ways of doing things, we are really reluctant to use what we know, as you said now, the research coming in, works, particularly in an area like education, because of entrenched power, it seems to me.
Well, if there's a professor that teaches, that can build with software, build the best Arab language class for high school students. Right. And why can't we have
everybody taking
Florida or inner city Miami that never would have access to that be able to go online as part of their education?
Absolutely.
To be able to get a credit for that and maybe get college credit as well. And if kids are being held back, why don't we develop software to assist teachers to be able to advance them, but not at the expense of holding back kids that are learning at a faster pace? There's so much that could be done, and in doing so, it would change the definitions of what a teacher is. It would change the definition of what a grade is. It's ridiculous to have an education system based on seat time.
Yeah. Listen, we've got to go, but can we have you back sometime?
Absolutely. Full
discussion. It's great. It's great to hear you. Great to hear you're in the game, your ideas. And I hope you get the opportunity to mentor our candidates and lots of people, and we'll be listening to you. Anytime you want to talk about something, give us a call. We'll give you 3.25 million people, okay?
All right.
Thanks, Jab. My best to Columba.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and your family, the rest of your family. It's Morning in America. Governor Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, one of the guys I really, really like. We'll be back. Brian Kennedy, and he's going to tell us about California. Is it governable, or do we saw it off and send it into the Pacific toward Hawaii or Guam? We'll be right back. It's morning. I'm Bill Bennett. It's Morning in America.